for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR FM 89.
And hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us. How to lower the price of higher ed, dealing with the cost of college in Arkansas. It's a question we've taken up here before and we'll turn to again in just a few minutes. But first, the cost of something else, something that touches every Arkansas household, and that's the price of power and the pace of public and private sectors in addressing the issue. Several days ago, the plainly perturbed chair of the State Public Service Commission, Ted Thomas, recused himself from a case involving solar power when a rural electric cooperative accused him of bias. Then, earlier this week, expressing frustration under anger, he announced his resignation from the PSC, effective in October. Traditional electricity providers, he complained, were dawdling, procrastinating, refusing to deal promptly and seriously, he said, on matters of alternative energy and the threat of sharply higher prices for natural gas and the electricity that gas helps generate. Ted Thomas joins us now. Mr. Chairman, thanks for coming in.
Good to be here. Good to see you, sir.
What is the issue as you see it here? I mean, are the utility companies simply dragging their feet? Are they? You seem to be suggesting that they are refusing to reconcile themselves to the future, with the future.
That's my view, and it's important to understand, it's fair to say that none of the utilities like this, but some of the utilities, even though they don't love it, they follow the law and work with it.
The shift to solar, anyway.
Yes.
All right.
There's a handful of cooperatives that's not the case with. What was particularly bothersome to me about the recusal is the sole basis for the recusal was legislative testimony. So really what they're trying to do is they're trying to run the public interest voice out of the legislature by saying, if you testify in the legislature, and I have an obligation in my view to testify truthfully there and answer their questions and work with their constituents, that if you say something in the legislative committee, then you have to pick. You have to pick between, are you going to talk to the legislature about energy policy and forfeit your role at the PSC, or are you going to stay silent at the legislature? And that's what they really want. Last time, some of these folks tried to deregulate. They wanted the concept of a deregulated monopoly. And of course, I went over there and we killed that bill. It needed to be killed. So they want to squelch me and give me the choice of squelching me in the legislature or squelching me at the PSC, and that's frustrating because consistently, I've offered guidance to the legislature that they've accepted, and we've been right. We've been ahead of the curve on the solar adoption. We've been ahead of the curve on other things. We were ahead of the curve on having options to hedge the high cost of natural gas, and they've been consistently wrong. They wanted to be deregulated monopolies, and now they wanted to use my testimony in the legislature as a basis for recusal. And any act, I mean, I've testified over there all the time. The parties involved in any of those acts, if they applied the same standard that these co-ops are applying, would cause this problem with anything we deal with. And we're delegated by the legislature with authority to do these things, so it's every issue, and that's a problem.
Well, did you consider staying and fighting, so to speak? And are you, second part of the question, are you concerned that that's your successor or whoever's?
Mm-hmm. I think the solar stuff has enough size and momentum that it'll be all right. What's also frustrating is all the contention over every aspect of the solar plan has stopped us from doing some stuff that I think we need to do in other areas like demand response. If you can pay somebody to use less at their choice, it's another consumer option. They don't have to do it if they don't want to, but if they can, it's a tool for them to use to save money. There's some stuff to save money. There's some stuff we could have done on that, but it's constant contention. And we have our normal stuff to do, all of this policy stuff that I've been very involved in. That's in addition, our normal stuff is generation acquisition, rate cases, which is enough to keep us busy. And then when you add all this other stuff, it means we're pressed for time all the time. And there's some that, in my view, seem to see that we're pressed for time. And if we make everything contentious, that's the way to block some of these policies. And that's frustrating.
Well, are you concerned then that the political pressure, we're talking about substantial economic interests here who know how to lobby the General Assembly.
Yes.
Are you concerned for the consumer?
There's some concern. I think
suffer,
the solar options are large enough. I mean, the University of Arkansas system's looking at it. Stevens is looking at it. Producers Rice Co-op, which represents like 1,500 rice farmers. The rice processing, there's enough solar out there tied to strong net interests that I think that will be okay. But the problem is to innovate, you start with something new and you're not dealing with a mature business. And that's when they can come in and try to kill it in the crib. They tried to do that with the solar and they failed. And in some ways they've succeeded on that with some of the demand response stuff. And that's frustrating. It's coming. It's going to come faster when prices are high and consumers are worried and looking for an alternative. And I understand what you're saying on the fight. We've rumbled for 8 years. I've enjoyed that. It's been, some view it as a character trait that's positive. Others view my tendency to rumble as a character trait that's negative. I've been around for a long time and rumbled a lot. And there's also a new administration coming, let's give someone else a chance. I've done my thing. It's time to pass the torch.
Are you concerned about a new administration coming in?
We'll see which way they go. I'm concerned about the quality or lack of quality in the political debate writ large. What you have are the sellers of power, who are very important. And you've got all the different fuel sources. And of course, the new stuff, the solar and wind are in that mix too. All the politicians in both parties, in my view, seem to want to line up with the sellers. Who's representing the buyers? Now, I love all my sellers because there are no sellers, there's nothing for the buyers. But to me, the policy should be more buyer-oriented and consumer choice-oriented than it's been. But the politics of both parties are dominated by the sellers.
We're talking about the co-ops, we're talking about energy, we're talking about...
more the generation sources. The nuclear folks, the wind folks, the solar folks, the gas folks, the coal folks, they've all got something they want to sell. And what we actually need is some market concept to sort the prices out and give consumers some ability to hedge to pick which risks they want to take, because nobody has a crystal ball. And
that's absent now in the market?
Well, we have a market, but the politics that drives the stuff, the previous administration, all they wanted to do was talk about coal, and never seemed to understand that natural gas competes with coal. Now, then you get the new folks in, they want to ban fossil fuels, they squelch investment, they squelch supply, demand stays the same, and the price spikes. Nobody's thinking about the cost. And then, of course, the backdrop of all of this is the climate debate, which to me is very important. And my Republican friends, I fear, are mishandling that. They don't want to be labeled science deniers because they get clobbered, so they default. And then you have, and I've said numerous times, I fully accept the science, but in California you have a circumstance where 10 years ago they said they were going to shut down gas plants because of climate change, and 10 months ago they said we're going to turn it back on because of climate change. At some point the science morphed into politics. But my Republican friends can't call them out because they're denying science in the first place. So you have costs being driven, and the sensible folks out there know we have a climate problem, but $6 a gallon gas isn't the solution. So that's what's missing, is the cost side of the climate debate. My Republican friends should be bringing it up, but they're punch drunk from getting clobbered over the head with being science deniers. So we're not getting a balanced, thoughtful debate that also includes cost. And that's, I've tried to do that. It's been successful when somebody like U.S. Steel comes here and has the word sustainability in their press release 7 times, announcing that they're going to come here. There has to be a face of sustainability if you're going to get that kind of economic development project. And I've tried to be that face. When they look at what's going on here, They don't see a science denier leading. They don't see a coal ideologue that wants to buy coal even though natural gas is cheaper. But then the solar and wind, it isn't a panacea. It's intermittent. You have to have a backup source. It's great. It saves you a lot of money when it's running, but you got to have the backup source when it's not, or you start to have reliability problems, and nobody wants that.
You did mention that you see it as a bipartisan difficulty that you're having to deal with. Although you did mention California, which is generally regarded as a liberal bastion anyway in its economic and environmental policies. What is the other failure on the Democratic side that you see?
The problem is they're so wrapped up the way the Republicans are in their fossil fuel donor base and their green energy donor base that they've lost track of cost. These costs hit middle-class people hard. You can't just pretend, and you can't, and the science is real, but the science shouldn't be used to mandate $6 a gallon $6 a gallon gas prices. To me, there's a lack of focus and cost. That if the Republicans were more effective in the cost argument, it would impose some discipline on the D side and some more focus on their side on cost. But it's a void. You don't have a balanced debate, so it's a void. And so you get some of the fringe having too much influence. And a thoughtful, rational debate can keep that from happening. I hope that makes some degree of sense.
Well, I mean, you're suggesting then that the environmental arguments anyway are utterly mindless, ignorant anyway.
On the extreme. I mean, nobody wants to drink foul water or breathe dirty air, but we also have a modern economy where 75 or 80% of the energy is produced by fossil fuels, and you can't just wave a magic wand and make that go away without destroying our standard of living. So you need a transition, but if you transition too fast and if you transition by squeezing supply, which is exactly what you're doing when the president calls for ending fossil fuel, then you spike the price. And of course, if my Republican friends were more articulate, rather than being punch drunk from not wanting to be labeled climate deniers, you'd have somebody effectively with this message. But that's not what you have. And so you have folks with high energy bills, whether they're natural gas bills, electric bills, or they're pulling up at the pump. You have one group on the extreme that only wants to represent shutting down fossil fuels. And if you pinch supply and demand stays up, the price spikes. That's economics 101. And the other people, the Republicans, instead of advocating for market alternatives that give people lower cost, they want to be cheerleaders for the fossil fuels. And this isn't really happening at the legislature. Our legislature's done fine. This is a national problem I'm talking about, not a state political problem.
Well, when you were here just a short time ago, you were profoundly concerned about the impact of the price that Arkansas consumers might well be faced with in a very cold winter.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yes,
that remains. Traditionally, what happens is probably 70% of all the natural gas is consumed, say, November through March. So that itself warps the supply-demand balance. So normally what you do when prices are lower over the summer, the gas companies have the capability of storing it and getting ready. Well, the prices never went down after last spring. So they've filled their storage with these high gas prices. Last summer, $3 or $4. We still saw the price spike in the winter when gas went to $5 or $6 because it was a lot, even though there was a lot of storage at $3 or $4. Well, this year, all of our storage is going to be expensive. It's going to be bad. The first home heating bills, if we have a cold winter, are going to be maybe 2 or 3 times what they were last year, and folks are going to feel that.
We've got about 15 seconds remaining. You're going to the private sector, I understand. Would it be anything in conflict with your present position as chair?
Absolutely not. I'm fully aware of the law that exists for the right reason. The folks are entitled to know that I'm looking out for them, not for my next opportunity. I'm full compliance with those laws, and there'll be something to talk about later.
Chairman Ted Thomas of the Arkansas Public Service Commission, thanks for being with us. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you again soon, we trust.
Okay.
We'll be right back. It's called Brighter Future 529. It is a state program, and if it isn't a complete solution to the problem of tuition fees, books, room and board, it can help. It's administered through the office of the Arkansas State Treasurer, Dennis Milligan, who joins us now, along with State Senator Missy Irvin of Mountain View, who is chair of the Senate Education Committee. To both of you, thanks very much for coming in. Mr. Milligan, let's begin with you. 529, how does it work and how much can it help?
Well, I think, Steve, that it can can help tremendously. I will tell you that in my administration, when I took over in 2015, there was about $568 million of asset management. We've grown that now to over $1.2 billion. So obviously, Arkansans have drank the Kool-Aid, and they know that this is going to be a way. I don't know that it takes the place totally of educational cost, but with the benefits of the program, with the fact that it's very liberal in how you can administer it, how it can be used, and the fact that you get a state tax deduction makes it tremendous.
All right, I'm a student, and I'm a student parent, so how do I use 529?
Yeah, well, the 529 can be used for any certified, accredited school. One of the things that we're really encouraging a lot now too, Steve, is technical trade. One of the things that the governor and I have come to the conclusion of is that if you don't have a human resource, if we don't have plumbers, electricians, etc., states or companies will just fly right over us. Welders. I can promise you a welder starting off today is going to be in probably 6 figures. So, but the program is very liberal, tuition, room and board, books, computers, many versatile things that the student can use. And now it actually goes from K through 12. So it can be utilized for those families that actually send kids to private schools.
How do I access that money?
Yeah. You access it anytime I guess that you want to, but ultimately you have your own account. We were the first state in the country to actually set up an app that's much like a banking app. So I can go with my 3 grandkids and look at any time and see what their account balance is. And by the way, that balance is about $23,000, the average account in Arkansas now. So if you don't use the money, if the student comes to you and says, you know, I'm not going to college, you don't lose a thing. You can transfer it to another child. You can actually withdraw all that money. There is a 10% penalty for that. So you're not losing a thing. And then for a married couple, they can get up to $10,000 off their adjusted gross income state, and a single individual $5,000. So it's almost like free money.
Well, but we're maybe a bit ahead of ourselves. Actually, it is a savings program administered through
the Treasurer's
office.
Yes.
How effective, Senator?
Well, and I think that's what is so important about trying to let folks know in the state of Arkansas that we do have these programs in place. They need to be utilized and they need to be taken advantage of by Arkansas citizens to plan for the future of their children. And I think it's such a brilliant program, but when you say a 529 program, you know, the average person doesn't really understand that or knows what that is. So we work together to bring legislation forward to kind of rename it, repackage it. And I love what the Treasurer's Office has done with this. It's really about financial literacy. It's about saving. It's about stressing the importance of saving and then doing it in a way that's smart by getting the tax benefit from that. But Arkansas Brighter Future is what we've named that. And that is going to be a brighter future, not just for those children and our citizens of our state, but really for the state of Arkansas in itself, because we want a brighter future for Arkansas, and the only way we get a brighter future for Arkansas is if we have students and children who are reaching their full potentials in the paths that they're going to choose, whether that be through 4-year education, 2-year education, certifications, whether it's technical training, workforce education and certification. We want to make sure Arkansas does have a brighter future if we can really emphasize and be intentional about helping these kids reach their maximum benefits and success and achievements.
Can we measure the effectiveness or the utilization even of the program thus far?
Well, I think the Treasurer's Office can do that, and I think it's important for us to team up also with other organizations around the state to promote this program and to promote the benefits of that. I know the Arkansas Bankers Association and other banks have, and other institutions, whether it be institutions of higher education, but we've got to really partner with our schools too, making sure our schools, K through 12, whether they're public, private, or charter, can have that information readily available and work it in to being emphasized with parents. That's the best time to get a hold of the parents so that they fully understand the opportunities that we have provided for them through the Arkansas Treasurer's Office. And it's a fabulous opportunity, you know, for you to save for your child's future, so that it's brighter for them and brighter for our state.
Is it working, Mr. Milligan? What's the extent of utilization?
Well, I say the proof's in the pudding. You know, Benjamin Franklin said, well done is much better than well said. And just the evidence alone of when I took over at $568 million under asset management, now well over $1.2 billion, says Arkansans are taking the steps to ensure. I never want a child to tell me I'm not going to college because I don't want that debt. That is the wrong reason, and I think it's imperative. And this program offers such affordability. You can open up an account for as little as $25. You can put in as little as $10 a month. So there's really no excuse. And I've always said, and my staff will tell you, you ever have a leak? I promise you, you put a bucket down and you come back in a little while, that bucket's got some water in it and it continues to grow and continues to grow. And that is the same way that this 529 program has worked. And again, we have just so many people from every corner of the state that have said to us, we didn't even know about this program until your administration.
Whether one agrees with it or not, the Biden administration has advanced now two initiatives to dissolve at least some outstanding student debt. Is there concern, well, Senator, we'll start with you, is there some concern that might reduce participation, enrollment in the brighter future of the 529 plan?
Well, I'm not sure.
An incentive to not participate.
Well, sure. I mean, I think you have kind of a reverse incentive here not to be responsible with your finances as a result of a program like that. And that's not at all beneficial for any person because throughout your life, you're going to have to be financially responsible and accountable for your decisions that you make. And if you're not, you're going to suffer down the road, whether that be in your private life or your business life. And so we need to start that from day one. That's why it's important that we have this type of literacy, financial literacy, beginning all the way from K through 12, so that we're teaching children how to utilize the financial system appropriately, understanding what debt can do to you and how detrimental it can be, saving for a future and planning for that future, understanding how much a credit hour costs you of higher ed is so critically important, because then it makes that student hustle to really achieve all the opportunities that are afforded to them. And if they don't, and it's just, you know, free, then they don't really take it as seriously, in my opinion, as they should. And so, you know, you get what you pay for. And if you know what you're paying for that product, then you're going to be more intentional, you're going to be more responsible with that, and you're going to be more responsible with your education and more responsible with your dollars for not just now, but also in the future. The
larger issue, the Senator seems to be saying, Mr. Milligan, that the economic literacy, financial literacy is the key, perhaps the underlying thing.
You can use the analogy again of the dog chasing the car. The dog has education. Financial education is a completely different thing. There are many people that are highly educated that are filing for bankruptcy this morning simply because they didn't know what to do when they caught the car, so to speak. And so you can make a lot of money, but still financial education is so important. We actually, when I first took office, was told I shouldn't have anything to do with education, with financial education, and I disagreed, and I think it's proven that we've affected some 30,000 Arkansas students with a program that we put on with a company called EverFi, where we distributed materials for them to put on a class. Very successful. Again, we have to start teaching from the ground up about financial responsibility, and just because you make a lot of money, you've got to know what to do with it.
And with that, we simply have to end it because we're out of time. Senator, Mr. Milligan, thank you both. Thank you both very much for coming in. Come back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that'll do it for us for this week. As always, we thank you for joining us, and see you next week.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR FM 89.